Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fund It Fast Chat. I am Rochelle Butler. I'm the Energy Manager with the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, and I hope everyone is enjoying a wonderful week. We are going to get going in just a couple of seconds. I just want to take care of our housekeeping first. Please make note that all of your microphones have been muted upon joining the call. This is simply to minimize background noise. As always, if you have any questions, I encourage you to go ahead and submit them using the chat box. You may do so at any point during the presentation. We will be sure to save some time toward the end of the call to address all of those questions. All right, next I would like to invite everyone to connect with us. You may do so on any one of our many platforms. You may find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Spotify, or you can just reach out the old-fashioned way via email or by telephone, whichever is your preference. And if you didn't quite get all of that, don't worry. Just remember you can access any of our resources by going to our website. That's at sjvcleanenergy.org. Once again, that's sjvcleanenergy.org. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So those of you who have attended past Fund It Fast Chats, you know we always take a really brief moment to talk about past Fast Chats that are kind of related to the current month's topic. So this month, once again, we are featuring a topic that is focused on community engagement and climate change resiliency. I invite you all to check out these other grant opportunities. Many of these programs are multi-year programs, so the information is still applicable. We have Fund It Fast Chat webisode number 20, which we discussed the EPIC grant opportunities. Fund It Fast Chat webisode number 29, where we touched on Connected Communities grant program. Webisode number 42, where we talked about the Equitable Community Revitalization Grants Program. And finally, just last month, for webisode number 51, we discussed the Regional Climate Collaboratives, or RCC for short. There's a wealth of really great information, so check it out. While you are over there checking out our YouTube page, don't be shy, y'all. Go ahead and give our videos a like and subscribe to our channel. This does help us out a ton, but more importantly than that, it helps folks just like yourselves to find our content. All right, a little bit of background on the program here. The Governor's Office of Planning and Research, through the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program, received $25 million to fund the Adaptation Planning Grant Program, APGP for short. This is through the state's 2021-2022 budget, which is Senate Bill 170. So Senate Bill 170 funded ambitious measures to build climate adaptation and resilience through planning, research, capacity building, restoration, and sustainable infrastructure. The APGP advances ICARP's statutory mission to develop a cohesive, equitable, and integrated response to the impacts of climate change through direct funding, support for local, regional, and tribal adaptation planning across California. The APGP program will fund integrated climate planning activities throughout the state. So let's talk a little bit about the listed goals of the program and what the key priorities are that the funding is set out to accomplish. The first goal is to help communities plan for and respond to multiple climate risks by supporting an all-risk approach to adaptation planning. These grants allow communities to conduct integrated planning activities. So, taking into consideration that California is seeing increasing climate effects that further compound other issues. So some examples of this that are referred to like flooding and landslides often follow wildfires, and ravine flood often follows sea level rise. So those are those compounded issues that I just referred to. The second goal is to support equitable outcomes and wide geographic and economic diversity in applicants. The third is to support much needed integrated infrastructure planning to achieve community resilience. The program is looking to address multiple sector and multiple issue planning needs, specifically those that intersect with climate risks such as land use, transportation, housing, natural resource management, public infrastructure, and hazard mitigation. This is just to name a few. It's not an exhaustive list. The final goal of the program is to build community planning and capacity. And so the program aims to do this by supporting peer-to-peer learning, information sharing, and publishing replicable case studies in the State Adaptation Clearinghouse. I will have a link to that clearinghouse site in the follow-up email after the call later on today. So now that we've talked a bit about the background of the program, what it sets out to do, we've also touched on the goals of the program, let's talk about the money. So the total pot of funding is $25 million. These dollars are allocated in fiscal year 2021-2022, as I mentioned earlier. Each applicant can request between $25,000 and $600,000 in total state funding for planning projects, and they will also be awarded on a competitive basis. Now, the good news is there is no match funding that's required. The period of performance, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. The period of performance for each project can span anywhere between 12 and 36 months. Now, beginning this year, there will be 3 consecutive rounds of the program. For each of those rounds, there will be $6.6 million of available funding. All right, now let's talk about the timeline. So this is really important. There are some really important dates that are coming up really quickly that I don't want you to miss if you are interested in pursuing this funding opportunity. We are very early in the program process. So if you're listening to this live, or if you're listening to the recording shortly after, you're ahead of the game, which is great news. The program is still in the comment period right now. So if you would like to make a public comment, you may do so in a couple of different ways. You may send an email or mail paper comments to the Office of Planning and Research. I will include both the email address and the mailing address in our follow-up email after the call today as well. You may also attend one of the workshops. So I don't have them all listed here because there's quite a few. However, I will make note that, I will make note that there is one workshop that's coming up very quickly. It's actually on Thursday, so October 13th. So be sure to set aside some time on your calendar this week if you do plan to attend. Also, I will provide a link to the listing of all of the workshops in our follow-up email later on today. So be on the lookout for that. Moving along, the solicitation will be officially released on November 7th of 2022, so in just under a month from now. Technical assistance application webinars will be between November 7th, 2022, and they will go through December 16th. So there will be a few of those that will occur. Technical assistance questions must be submitted no later than 5 p.m. on November 23rd of this year, and applications must be submitted no later than 5 p.m. on December 16th of 2022. The notice of recommended awards will be posted sometime in January or February of 23. Projects are projected to begin on April 1 of 23. And the rest of the dates I have on the list here occur a little bit further out in the future, but they do pertain to future rounds of the program cycle. So I'll just go over these really briefly. We can expect each year during Q3 and Q4 for the program to have their program technical assistance workshops. So those will occur at around the same time of the year, each year of the funding. The anticipated date for the whole 3-round program to wrap up is going to be September 30th of 25. And finally, the last date that I have on the list here is that all invoices for funded projects must be submitted no later than June 30th of 26. All right, So we've talked about the money and the timelines. I would like to touch briefly on who is eligible to apply. There's a couple of layers here, if you will. There are lead applicants and there are also co-applicants. Lead applicants can be local public entities such as cities, counties, metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs for short. Joint power authorities may also apply, or JPAs for short. Regional transportation planning agencies, and also councils of government. Also included on this list of eligible applicants are public entities, including institutions of higher education, districts, public authorities, public agencies, political subdivisions, and also public corporations. Now, the caveat here is that all public entities applying for projects targeting at benefiting vulnerable communities in their constituencies should partner with at least one community-based organization. Eligible applicants also include California Native American tribes, disadvantaged unincorporated communities, or DUCs for short, community-based organizations. CBOs include 501c3 nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations, philanthropic organizations, foundations, and other organizations with a history of representing vulnerable communities. Now, I know that was a lot, but it's still not an exhaustive list. So there is a much more detailed list in the program guidelines, which I will also link in our follow-up email after the call today. As a side note, for-profit entities are not eligible to apply as lead applicants or fiscal applicants, but can be subcontracted to provide research or other services. In fact, co-applicants are strongly encouraged for this program. There should be a minimum of one co-applicant. When applications are scored during the competitive process, they want to see that there's a strong, diverse, and they want to see multi-stakeholder partnerships, or at least at minimum, plans to establish such partnerships. And speaking of community partnerships, if you haven't gotten the memo yet, this is a very strong part of the application. So it's a priority in scoring the application. So I thought I would touch on this as well very briefly. Applicants must demonstrate strong, diverse, multi-stakeholder partnerships or plans to establish such partnerships in their planning approach. Diverse partnerships will represent CBOs, disadvantaged communities, educational institutions, businesses, and other stakeholder groups, but they should not be limited to the list that I just gave you. At minimum, the community partnership should plan to include key stakeholders. It should also include a recent history of engagement with those stakeholders and also a process to identify the needs of the stakeholders during the proposal development phase. So that's a really important thing to remember. All right, so this program is set up, the funding for this program is set up on a reimbursement basis. So there are both eligible and ineligible activities for reimbursement. So for activities to be eligible, they must fit into one or more of 4 categories, or they call them phases. There are very lengthy descriptions for each of these. I'm not going to go into each one into a lot of detail, but I want to give you just enough to give you an idea of what those 4 phases look like. So for phase 1, that is explore, define, and initiate. And some of the items that fit under this phase include things like identification of goals, objectives, and scope of work for adaptation planning activities. Phase 2, which is assess vulnerability. This includes items relating to the development of a climate vulnerability assessment or a suite of assessments that identify and characterize the climate hazards and other climate effects faced by the community. Phase 3 is the Define Adaptation Framework and Strategies phase. This includes things like preparation, adoption, and implementation of a general plan or elements of a general plan that incorporate climate risk. And finally, phase 4 is implement, monitor, evaluate, and adjust. So this includes the preparation of an action plan or a funding plan to put a strategy or a set of strategies into action. Again, I just want to stress this is not an exhaustive list of details. Please take a look at the guideline. I will have the link available for you in our follow-up email. There's lots of details for each one of these phases. But again, I just wanted to give you an idea of what those look like. Finally, I can't talk about eligible activities if I don't talk about ineligible activities. There's just a couple. Applications containing any one of the following will actually be disqualified. So implementation of construction projects such as direct and indirect construction costs, initiation documents, engineering plans, and design specification work, also capital costs or maintenance costs. So those would render the application disqualified. Also, there are environmental studies, plans, or documents that are normally required for project development under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA for short, or the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA for short. So those items are actually not allowed through the program, but reading through, it seems like just about everything else is, so rest assured. And with that, that is what I have on this program. So I'm going to pause really quickly here for questions. Once again, if you have any questions, please take a couple of seconds and drop those into the chat box for me if you have not already done so. While folks are working on that, I just want to take a quick second to remind everyone, please look out for our follow-up email after the call today. That email will have links to all of the related fast chats that I mentioned at the top of the presentation, so you don't have to go searching for them. That email will also include links to important information and resources that I referenced during the presentation. Lastly, take a quick second to add us to your email contacts. We want to be sure that you're receiving our communications so you can stay up to date on what's going on around the partnership. That email is info@sjvcleanenergy.org. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a peek at our chat box and see what we have here. All right. And I don't see any questions. I see one person sharing their contact information. Thank you so much, Trista, for doing that. We'll go ahead and add you to our list, and you'll receive regular updates on the fast chat and other activities that we have going on. All right, now what's next for the Funded Fast Chat? The next Funded Fast Chat will be on November 8th, so I hope you will all join us for that one. We will be discussing funding opportunities through the Inflation Reduction Act. Of course, I hope to see you all for every episode of the Funded Fast Chat, but if you can't make it for whatever reason, just remember, all Funded Fast Chats are recorded and can be accessed through our website or by going directly to our page on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe while you're over there. All right, as always, thank you all for joining us so much this morning. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I hope you all stay safe and stay healthy until next time.